Hey everyone, it's Tom. Today I'm going to tell you about one of the most effective types of exercises that you can perform at home to develop your chest muscles. I'm going to explain why they're so effective, and I'm going to demonstrate one type of exercise that you can perform at home without the use of any weights that's almost as effective as any exercise you can perform at the gym in developing your chest muscles. Before I get started though, if you find videos like this valuable, please let me know by hitting the like button down below and consider subscribing to this channel. So first, let's start off with some basics about what your chest muscles or your pectoral muscles do and some of the mechanics behind how they function. There are actually two main muscle groups there, two main pectoral muscle groups, the pectoralis major and minor. But in this video, like most exercise routines, we're going to cover the pectoralis major because it physically covers the pectoralis minor. It's a much larger muscle group, and it's what's responsible for the majority of the strength and aesthetics of your chest. So your pectoralis major muscle fans out and attaches along your clavicle and your sternum, and all the fibers join together and attach at a single point at your humerus, which is the bone in your upper arm. And because of the fact that the muscle is so spread out in its attachment across your clavicle and your sternum, but attaches at a single point on your arm, it is capable of manipulating your arm about your shoulder joint in a rather complex variety of motions, including adduction, which is like arm flapping where your arms are drawn down toward your torso, and rotation of your upper arm about your elbow joint. Because your pectoral muscles adduct your upper arm and draw it toward your torso, there are a variety of motions and exercises that you can perform to stress the various fibers of your chest more than others. Exercises like dips or pullovers tend to stress those lower chest fibers because of the direction that those fibers are facing. They run from your sternum along the center of your chest upward toward your arm, so they are responsible for pulling your arm downward. Conversely, exercises that involve an upward arm movement, like an uppercut in boxing or an underhand baseball pitch, tend to stress the upper chest fibers more because those are the ones that are attached at your clavicle, and they run downward relatively toward that point on your arm where they're attached, so they draw your arm upward. The movement of the upper arm always involves a variety of muscle groups, and the motions are rather complex. So we want to try to find an exercise that maximizes the recruitment of the chest muscle while minimizing the involvement of all those other muscle groups, like your shoulder muscles and your biceps and your triceps, so on. So it tends to be that pressing motions in the horizontal plane, horizontal when I'm standing or sitting, tend to be the most effective at maximizing the recruitment of all of your chest fibers at the same time. Now that we understand why horizontal adduction type motions are so effective at recruiting the chest muscles, let's take a look at presses versus flies. Both of these exercises involve a very similar motion, and they require that your chest muscles produce a torque about your shoulder joint to rotate your upper arm. And a torque is a force multiplied by a distance. And a moment arm is the distance from the axis of rotation, which is your shoulder joint in this case, to wherever the force is being applied, wherever the weight is being applied. If we look at the upper arm during a press, the torque that the chest muscles have to produce is equal to the weight being lifted multiplied by the distance from the elbow to the shoulder. If we look at a fly by comparison, the torque the chest muscles have to produce is equal to the weight being lifted multiplied by the length of your extended arm from your hand to your shoulder. For most people, the moment arm from their hand to their shoulder is going to be twice or perhaps even more than twice the distance from their elbow to their shoulder, which explains why when we perform a fly, we can cause our chest muscles to have to produce the same amount of torque using roughly half or less the amount of weight that we would while we perform a press. This also explains why the amount that a person can bench press is not just merely a function of his or her chest muscle strength, but also must take into account the length of his or her arms. This leads us to why the fly is such a great exercise to perform at home. Muscle development results not from the amount of weight we can lift, but how much stress we can deliver to the muscle fibers. And because with flies, we have to use much less weight to develop the same amount of stress as we would with a press, it's much easier to perform with less equipment. In fact, you can actually perform this exercise with no weight at all. The most effective at-home chest exercise I perform is the fly push-up. Using individual hand rollers, like you might use for ab rollers, you can perform a fly push-up using no weight at all. And of course, you could wear a backpack or a weight belt for increased resistance if you want. If we pause this exercise for a minute, you can see that the moment arm is from my hand to my shoulder, and the force is the weight of my torso. This is roughly twice the moment my weight generates during a push-up, where the moment arm is only from my elbow to my shoulder. And in order to reduce the resistance during this exercise, you could use an exercise band stretched between the two hand rollers as I'm demonstrating here. There are a couple additional advantages to this exercise. And the first is that with respect to performing a dumbbell fly on a bench, this exercise has a relative built-in safety feature where if you fail during the exercise, you're most liable to do that while your arms are fully extended, and you'll just simply fall on your face, which probably means you want to perform this over a soft surface, but it will protect your muscles and your connecting tissue from overstrain. The second advantage is one that is seen in pretty much any fly exercise, and that is that you can finish the exercise out with a series of presses, or in this case, push-ups, which allow you to fully extend and stretch your chest muscles under a reduced load, a reduced resistance, and that allows you to fully exhaust your chest muscles at the completion of the set. One more thing I'd like to mention is how the resistance changes over the range of motion of this exercise. As you may recognize, once your arms are fully extended in front of you, there's very little resistance anymore. And that's because when your arms are fully extended in front of you, the load, which is being generated by gravity trying to pull your torso toward the floor, is now being reacted axially along the length of your arms. It's carried through your skeletal structure and into your shoulder joint, and there really isn't any load that's trying to pry your arms apart anymore. But I want to point out that this is also a feature of the press. When your arms are fully extended in a press, the same thing is true, where that load is mostly carried axially down the length of your arms and really isn't in a direction anymore where it is trying to pry your arms apart, where your chest muscles have to work to generate a moment about your shoulder joint. And this is basically a feature of nearly any exercise that involves free weights. There's some change in resistance over the range of the exercise that gets maximized at a single point. And I'll save maybe a detailed discussion on that for another video in case anyone's interested. But the point is that while there are exercises like a cable cross machine or a cable fly that can apply resistance at the top of a fly because of the point where the cable originates from a point that's somewhere perpendicular or close to perpendicular to your arm at the extension. Those exercises are obviously more difficult to perform at home because they require specialized equipment in order to do so. So what we can do instead with this exercise to ensure that we're maintaining constant resistance in our chest muscles is to stop short of having our arms fully extended in front of us. We want to stop so that our arms are still partially apart so that we still have some resistance, and squeeze our chest muscles so that we fully contract them before we start extending our arms again. With that said, I hope you found this content valuable, and if you did, please like the video, subscribe, and please feel free to leave me a comment on any future content that you might like to see. Until next time, thanks everyone for watching.